Hello, everybody. Hey, welcome. It's 6 o'clock Central, and we're going to kick off our live webinar tonight about empty nesting, empty nest ahead, preparing emotionally and financially for what's next. Many of you joining us today are probably somewhere in the middle of this journey, maybe the beginning of it, maybe near the end of it. Who knows? But you're here for a reason because the empty nest life, the empty nest changes that are going on, for whatever reason, are becoming real and becoming part of your life. So welcome. You are in good company. We'll be talking a lot about a number of different things here tonight, but no matter where you're at in this journey of becoming an empty nester, living as an empty nester, there are so many changes that are coming or that you're experiencing now that it's good just to take a breath, take a look at what's going on, and try to understand some good next steps that you can take. So the question you might have is, why would I be talking about this? I'm a financial advisor. What do I care about empty nesting, all of that fun stuff? Well, this is a picture of my family. This is a trip that we all took to Boston, and we were visiting that great city and seeing all the sights and all those kind of things. And you can see from the picture, I got quite a few people in here, and a couple of them are extras, but the four of those kids are mine. And so we have a blended family, and the kids are all right now in that kind of 25 to 27-year-old range. But about this time of this picture, they were just getting out of college. And so we put all four of them through college, and they were all in for about 2 years during the middle of that at the same time. So the challenge of launching the empty nest, paying for the empty nest, all of that was something that we experienced very closely. And then I've been serving as a financial advisor to a number of different families over the years, and we've seen them go through all of these challenges as well. And so it was actually 6 years ago today that we founded PrairieFire Wealth Planning. I'd spent many years at some of the large Wall Street banks developing my career and my clients, and was able to then launch and become an independent advisor 6 years ago today, as fate would have it. And in that whole process, examined not just my life and my finances, but how to be a better dad in the empty nest era, how to deal with all the changes that were being thrown at me, whether I liked them or not, and just all the tough things that come along with becoming an empty nester. We're going to talk about a few things here today. So the emotional earthquake, the things that we feel and experience during this time of change are very, very real, and they can be a little shocking. And for me, it started kind of early when they started driving my kids and they were able to go off and do their own thing. They became very independent, and it was just a difficult time to deal with that change. And here I thought we'd done all these things for these kids, and they didn't seem very grateful to me. They kind of moved on to doing their own thing. And so the emotions that you're feeling are very real and create a lot of challenges. Second thing then is just doing a financial recalibration. And so I characterize it as a financial GPS recalibration, to where we're taking a second look at where we're at financially now, because finally we might have a little bit of space in our financial plan for us and for us as parents to examine what we've been doing, what we can maybe do now that we have some of these other obligations taken care of. The next thing I'll talk about is just some myths that are out there around empty nesting, where we have grown to believe certain things have to be true during the empty nesting years that I found to be completely false, that we can bust through and find new ways to experience this journey. And then just some concrete steps that you can take to have a full nest over these next number of years. One of the things that I'll say, and you'll hear me say it maybe many times tonight, is that I firmly believe that the empty nest can be one of the greatest periods in your life, that you can have a lot of joy and a lot of great experiences during this time, new fulfillment maybe that you didn't feel before when you were parenting. So August 25th is coming. Many of you, if you're dropping kids off at school, you've already done that, and they're getting ready to start school on the 25th, which is in Iowa anyway, where we're headquartered, where a lot of the universities and schools begin their studies. And so everybody goes a week before, they go through orientation, all of those challenges. So August 25th is coming, and that's a day that will be, for many of us, marked in our memory as to when we launched one of our children or all of our children. And so this picture I've got here is of my daughter, Anna. She'd probably be very upset with me. This is her senior picture from high school. She may not want me to use this, but it just reminded me of those launching days when we left our kids off at school. And so I had a son, Matt Jr., that had gone to the University of Iowa. Anna followed in his footsteps the following year. So when I dropped Anna off, I went through the ritual of getting her dorm room set up and finding all the stuff that she would need, and running to Target and loading up on all the cords and outlets and Keurig machines that apparently everybody has to have now when they're in college. And so we got her all set up. We got the room going, met her roommates and their family, all that fun stuff. And it was becoming clear that it was about time for me to go. Well, I didn't want to. So I said, hey, why don't we go for lunch? So we ended up going over for lunch, went to B-Dubs, had some wings, did all that kind of fun stuff. And once again, became very clear that it was time for me to leave, but didn't want to. In the end, gave Anna a hug, walked away, dealt with the emotional challenge of leaving your daughter and your child behind at school, and recognizing that life is different now. Life has changed, and for many of you out there today, that you're either experiencing this for the first time, experiencing it again, maybe it happened a few years ago, whatever it is, you know what I'm talking about. It's something that is just very emotional as you let go, and now you begin to ask yourself, well, what's next for me? How is this all going to work? So first thing I want to talk about is this emotional earthquake. And so I like to characterize it, this time in life, as one that we can view via scarcity or via abundance. And what I mean by that is that we can feel like things have been taken away from us. And certainly they have. We have lost a connection with a child that was with us every day, and now they no longer are. But there's also a side where we can rediscover and reconnect in ways that can create a lot of abundance during this period of time. So what we found is that once we got into the rhythm of them not being around, the kids not being around as much anymore, and we're starting to live our own life, we can do maybe some new things. So we develop some new routines. You learn to cook for a smaller amount of people, maybe just you and your spouse or you and your partner. We were able to make some new friends. So a lot of you have been going through high school likely with your kids. And so they've developed their parent, you've probably been friends with their parents throughout these years. You can maybe find then that you'll make a lot of new friends that are in this same boat, feeling exactly the way that you do, going through this, crazy emotional earthquake. So I remember we were at a spring break trip. And so we'd had a chance to go with all the kids to, I think, Mexico, somewhere like that. And they were all meeting around. So I met a gentleman there by the pool. We just got to talking. We realized that we golfed at the same golf course, knew a lot of the same people. He is now one of my closest friends. And so we developed a whole new network of people, a whole new nest, if you will, of folks that we were able to engage with. I also think that when you're living in a period of abundance during this time is that you can really find a lot of new adventures, things maybe that you've been waiting to do, hobbies you've been waiting to pursue. You can also take a second look at your career. What's going on there? Is there a way that I can expand this? Can I do something different? Maybe your financial responsibilities are a little different and would allow you to do that. But it really is a time when you can rebirth a little bit and come on to some new things and some new connections. The other thing that I'd say, and this also goes back to maybe one of the myths, is that there's really a challenge in staying connected with your kids once they leave. And now that we have the phones, there's a lot easier to stay in touch. But what I found worked really well with my kids was to develop a communication plan and staying connected with them and saying, let's talk on Sunday or do a FaceTime on a certain point of the day. Or if I text you, please get back to me within a day or so, whatever the rule may be in your family, so that you got proof of life, that everybody's still doing okay off at university. But remember, they're going to be very, very busy. They've got all new challenges, new friends, new living arrangements, getting to class, finding their way around. It's overwhelming. They're scared. There's a lot going on with them. So knowing that you are there for them, but not doing it for them is one of the greatest gifts I think we can give these kids, is give them room to breathe, room to move, room to find their own experiences, their own friends, but know that you're always there for them. And so I found it was very different with my children as to how they communicated and connected. The boys in particular were very non-communicative. It was difficult to get a hold of them. Occasionally they would touch base. We check in now and then just to see how it was going. Girls were better, wanted to talk a little bit more, were more telling us what was going on with the experiences, the sororities, the things that they were going through. And so with my boys, I really had to drill down to understand what's going on, how our class is going, tell me about this professor, get some more of the details, because they weren't just going to easily offer it up. But I did find that it was with the phone, now that we have these, able to better stay connected. So don't feel like, boy, now that they're gone, I'm never going to hear from them. I've heard some horror stories, however, of kids that just kind of go off the grid at first because it's so overwhelming. So just, once again, developing a plan early on to say, this is when we're going to talk, I think you might find really, really helpful. One of the other things, and I'll leave you with this as far as the scarcity and abundance theme on the emotional earthquake, is that We started an empty nest dream journal. And I wrote a book a few years ago during COVID called Empty Nest Full Pockets. And we'll talk about how you can get a free copy of that if you're interested later in our webinar here. But this dream journal is really just a booklet where we could put down some of the things that we've been thinking about doing and some of the things that matter to us. I went through an entire kind of emotional, what does life all mean? As my kids were beginning to get independent and go through that. So using a journal and kind of writing down what I was thinking and some of the things that I wanted to accomplish, that really led me to the realization that I wanted to start my own company and be an advisor that worked strictly for his clients, not for anyone else. And so we were able to do that then in 2019. But that dream journal is something that I still keep handy. And there are still things that come up that, boy, I really want to try. So, whether it be lately, we've been talking about Japan, how we think it would be cool to explore Japan and get to know that and how we could experience that in a unique way. And then this year, part of our journal was we wanted to do some sort of one connection trip with our whole family whenever we could. So there's 6 of us. Now 2 of them are married and 2 of them have others. So there's actually 10 of us. So no grandkids yet, but there's 10 of us. And so we did a trip all together here a couple weeks ago down to Table Rock Lake, and we're able to share a home and have a few days together. And I just can't tell you how fun it gets, how great it becomes when they become young adults and you can connect with them. But by putting some of these things down in my journal that I wanted this to happen, for whatever reason, I think it hits the synapses or whatever that it becomes an execution moment then, and something that we really want to work on or think about. The other thing with your empty nest dream journal is, once again, you can start beginning imagining life with a little bit of you back in it. You've been parenting full time. It's been good work, and they wouldn't be able to go out and do this if you hadn't done the good work of creating independent young adults. So they're off doing that. It's a good time to reassess where you're at. And to that end, we want to talk about how that's going to impact your financial situation. So, so much is changing. You've been spending maybe a little bit of money putting away for retirement, a little bit to save for cars, but a lot of times your cars are going to the kids. You've been putting money into college savings plans so you can, once again, take care of the kids when they go to college. You've been socking money away so that they can get ready for the spending money and things that they're going to need when they get to college. All the things, all that money has been going towards areas to support your family. Once again, very, very good work, very, very important. But now we have a chance to recalibrate and take a look at what do we need to do in our own financial life that can really make a difference now that we're empty nesters or becoming empty nesters. And so I want to walk you through a few of these areas here. Please don't sign off as soon as you hear the word budget. I know everybody hates that, but there's some easy ways to accomplish this that can really make a difference in how you approach these next number of years. The second thing then is reassessing retirement. It's going to look different now. It's actually becoming more relevant to you now that the kids have launched. You're going to have to actually be thinking about what you might want to accomplish and when you want to accomplish those things when you do choose to pull the trigger of whatever retirement might look like for you. Real estate. Do we move? Do we downsize? Do we remodel where we live? It's a huge financial decision. It can also be an emotional one because everybody's attached to this house. Just met with somebody today, burgeoning empty nesters. They have a 17-year-old and a gal and another daughter that's in graduate school. Their house is 6 bedrooms. So they're realizing we don't need a 6-bedroom house anymore. What are we going to do with this place? Because now I have 2% money on my mortgage and I have to go get 7% if I want to get something new. That's a real challenge. We'll talk about that. Your insurance needs, we're not going to delve into this deeply, but we're going to talk about it briefly to understand that those needs have really changed now that the kids have left, and the need for insuring things becomes much more personal to your situation now. And then just talking about some debt issues and how to manage debt now that you're in the second half of life, and how to get it in a way that would, help you find some balance in that area if that balance is needed. So we're going to start with the no pain, no gain budget plan. Here's the thing. If you don't know where all the money's going, it's going to be difficult to really decipher what you need to be doing with it instead, if you need to be making new plans. And so the beauty now is that we have so many tools on our banking apps and our personal finance applications that we can really see and understand where those dollars are going. You probably have a pretty good feel by now what kind of money you have coming in. You're likely established in your career, or you have a pretty good feel for where you're at as far as your earnings go. So then it's kind of siphoning down to what that spending looks like. Because what we want to help you do is develop 3 strong buckets of money. The first one is your safe money, and you likely already have this money built. It's set aside for emergencies, things you didn't plan for, the unexpected. You all know this now. Life comes at you and you don't always know how that's going to go. So you've got to have some money set aside, safe, easily accessible. What many empty nesters that I meet don't have is a second bucket of money. And that one is designed for the next 3 to 10 years. And that is for things like cars, paying off your home, doing any sort of starting a business, all these kind of middle range goals where you can take a little bit more risk maybe than you can in the safety bucket. So you can actually let this money hopefully grow, put it in some balance between, stocks and bonds and give it a chance for a little bit more growth to keep up with, with inflation and all of those challenges. And so that's money that you can also get to that you need for whatever may come next. And this is where the goals, the empty nest journal, all that comes in. So let's say you've sat down and decide that a all expense paid trip, you want a trip to Costa Rica. You do some checking and it's going to cost $15,000. And you're going to do this in 3 years. Well, by getting to work on this now and putting it in a bucket where it can grow a little bit more than just a savings account, gives you a chance to accomplish that goal. And you can really see that this middle bucket is serving you in that lifestyle ambition. Paying off a car, fixing a kitchen, doing off those kind of things are what this middle bucket's designed for. And so many folks have their first bucket built, they skip the second bucket, and then they have a third bucket built, which is their retirement, their long-term money, their aspirational dollars. 401ks have allowed us to do this in a much easier fashion. So the three buckets of money are going to allow you to build a budget that's going to make sure you've got some balance between these three. Maybe you're short on cash because of college just starting for the kid. So now you need to fill that back up. Maybe you don't have anything in a middle bucket and you want to get that going. The budget, understanding where those discretionary dollars are going. If there's a lot going to subscriptions or restaurants, Starbucks, I'm guilty there. Whatever it may be, if you want to make some of these other buckets grow, that's how you do it, is figuring out where that discretionary money is and where you can maybe siphon off a little bit more to help develop out these goals and help develop out these buckets and more with more purpose. The second then is rethinking retirement. It's probably not something you've thought about a lot. If you're in your mid 40s, mid 50s, even getting close to 60, it may not be something that you've thought about a whole lot, is that you will be retiring at some point. In some cases, retirement's forced upon us because of our health or our jobs change and we're told we'll be retiring now all of a sudden. So that is definitely part of this picture. But what I want you to really be thinking about is, how do you want to live in retirement? What are you retiring to? And for some, that looks a lot more these days like a downshift in what you're doing, but still staying engaged in either the workforce or your own business, a nonprofit that you care about, whatever it is. But nobody wants to just detach completely. Many are miserable in their careers. I get that. And you want to be done working in that area, no problem. But use your dream journal to be thinking about what else you could do that could fill in some of the financial gaps, but also give you a lot more fulfillment on the emotional and purpose-filled, purpose-driven side of that equation. Retirement, I've taken hundreds of families through the retirement journey, planning for it, executing on it, living in it. And I see over and over again, if you don't have a good feel for what your days are going to look like, the things that you want to accomplish, the organizations that you want to be a part of, you have to have a plan. If you just walk into this cold, you're going to be sorely disappointed and you usually have to do it over. I've seen a number of folks, stop a career, retire for a year, go back and do something else. And they're fine doing that. That gap year was good for them. Others get very, very frustrated, very bored, very discontent with how their life is going. So you need to experience retirement a little bit before you retire. You need to try some things that give you some time off, see what it's actually going to be like. But in reassessing all that, the earlier that you want to do it, the more that you want to spend, the more you've got to start saving now. No one is going to help us in retirement. Yes, we have Social Security. That will be a nice supplement. That's nowhere near going to probably replace what you're living on today. You've got to start planning for this and understand through that budgeting process what you've got, what you can afford to put away. And then you've got to look at the massive liability that is coming down the road from taxes of all that money coming out of those 401k plans. So reassessing retirement requires an important emotional journey of understanding what you want to do, and then the financial side of how you want to do that. How do you want to accomplish that, and getting those plans down on paper and get to work on what that's going to take. Because again, retirement is going to be our responsibility. No one out there is going to save us anymore. It's up to us. All right. So one of the other big things that comes up is around real estate. And do I downsize? Do I move? I'm addressing this in kind of a strange time because if we'd have done this 3 or 4 years ago, interest rates were below 3%. It was very easy to say, I'll just move and get a new mortgage at 3%. Now, if you want to do that same thing, you're facing a couple different things. One, your house is likely inflated. So, yes, you'll get a lot more for it. But guess what? Your neighbor's house is inflated too. So, you're paying more for whatever you get. And if you do need to borrow, you're likely going to be doing that at a higher rate. This is why the real estate market right now is so trepidatious and kind of locked up because so many people aren't moving because of these kind of dynamics. So understand and do some planning around what can we do to make the house that we're in work if you want to stay there. So they have the folks we talked to today had a 6 bedroom house. What am I going to do with this big house? Well, you can re-engineer it to be an office. You can use some of the other spaces for a gym, whatever kind of things that you want to do. My wife and I, we did this in 2016. So it was when rates were still low, but we did downsize. So we had a large house that was accommodating 4 teenagers and all of their friends. So you can imagine the parade that was going through. But it was a large house and it was a location that was great for them, great for our life at the time. But we wanted something quieter and we wanted something smaller. So we did move and downsize, but we still have room for them. But we've had a lot of spaces for us as well. We have, I guess you could call it a man cave. We've got a little gym down there with TV that I hang out in. And my wife's got her own space where she can do her work and her things as well. And then we have, a guest room as well as room for the kids whenever they come home, the extra ones, we can throw mattresses down and make it all work. So just be thinking through how you want this to work for you. In some cases, if it is a massive house and it's just not going to work, figuring out, can I build up my middle bucket in a way? How much equity will I squeeze out of this? Can I be patient and find the right place at the right time? Do I want to consider building? Would that be something that would be financially accommodating and build a house that I could make my forever house? All those kind of questions. You have to also be thinking about the emotional side of this. For my kids in particular, when we said we were leaving the house, they got very upset. A lot of memories created there. They enjoyed having their friends there. Where are we going to live? Where are we going to stay? Yada, yada. You understand. But there is some emotions definitely attached to those houses. And so working through that, how are you going to feel when you move? And also, if you're going to move, what does that neighborhood look like? What are the folks around me? Are they also empty nesters? And I have a chance to grow my network, grow my community, all of those kind of things. So just things to think about. The other thing I'll move up on this is talk about debt next instead of insurance, but it's part of your budgeting process is building out a sheet that kind of shows what you own and what you owe. And on the what you owe side, you want to take a hard look at things that are costing you a lot, especially in interest. The obvious ones are credit cards. The second ones that we usually see that are prevalent are car loans, boat loans, things that are, attached to assets that are depreciating in value. And then usually your mortgage, first or second mortgage is attached to that. So I know Dave Ramsey talks about kind of a waterfall approach. You pay off a little debt at a time. I think that's great. I think you really want to take a look at your interest rates that you're paying. And I also would encourage you to strike some balance here. I do think you can build a middle bucket and a retirement bucket while also paying down debt. I don't think it has to be one or the other. So a more modified, gradual approach doesn't always feel quite as rewarding because you're not paying off big chunks right away. But I found it to be a good way to develop goals in tandem. I want to get some of this stuff knocked down, but I also want to have a chance to grow some money and watch my assets grow a little bit at the same time. So it's, once again, depending on your situation, taking a hard look at what the debt is costing you, where you can attack some in the near term to get some of those short-term wins, but do approach it with some balance. And understand that you'll go into retirement a lot more peaceful, feel a lot better about the situation if you can do that without any debt. And even if you're carrying a small mortgage loan, that usually works out fine as well. I'm just saying for your own peace of mind and seeing it with experience is that a lot of folks really value going in without any debt, knowing that the income that they're creating from their assets, their work, their Social Security is tied just to their living expenses and dealing with inflation and those kind of things. So just something to think about as you're earmarking what's next. Insurance is, I would just encourage you to get an insurance review from a financial professional. Take a look at all the policies that you have and do I still need this? If you've got large life insurance policies that have a lot of cash value, it might be time to convert that into something else like long-term care or using it where you can get the insurance costs reduced somehow. Or maybe ensuring your income for life isn't quite as important as it was when the kids were young and you had to support them. If you have a spouse, of course, there's still work to be done there to support each other through all of this. But I just think it's a great time to take a look at everything, get quotes and bids, Right now, home insurance and all property and casualty insurance is nuts the way it's changing. So getting a good agent that can represent you and check the market to find the right things at the right time. If you can, as the kids age out, look to getting them dropped off your policies, especially young males, can really reduce your car insurance costs as they begin to grow up and work. They can start taking care of that on their own, hopefully. And so that insurance piece is something where you can end up saving a lot of money. Use that money savings then to go to some of these other buckets and other goals and dreams that you set up. All right. I want to talk to you real quick about something that I put in the chat, which is called the Empty Nest Financial, or excuse me, Success Checklist. This is available for everybody for free download right in the chat there. And we put this together to really help understand, what it's like to navigate and all of the kind of things that we need to do once the kids have left home. So it's an easy read, but one of the things that we've included here is a ton of links to different resources, like our book, relationship guides, rediscovering interests, updating your budget, reviewing college expenses, how to pay down debt, things I just talked about, evaluating your real estate decisions, a lot of things in here that can help evaluate that decision. One of the things that we haven't talked about is many of us will now have to support our aging parents and the challenges that come with that. So all of that's included in here. I'd really encourage you to download it. Again, it's free, just there to help. And a lot of folks have told us that it's been very helpful having that available as a resource. Okay, I want to talk about a couple myths that go on with the empty nest. The other thing I'd like to mention is that in this webinar, we do have a chat box. And if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them into that chat. And you can send that directly to me if you want to. But also just let you know we can answer those at the end. So make sure that that's available. All right, myth busting. A number of things that I believed to be true when I was younger, coming into the empty nest, as I explored it and did more research, found out weren't true, and also experienced that they weren't true. And the first one is that my marriage is going to have absolutely has to be in trouble now that the kids aren't there to buffer us any longer. The opposite was true for us. We got even closer. We were able to spend more time together. We didn't have the stress. We were step parents as well, so we had some additional stress in dealing with those teenage years. And when the kids weren't around on a Friday night, I didn't have to worry quite as much about curfew. I always worried about them. That never ever changes. But that between that worry, the stress of work, all of those kind of things that you're dealing with when the kids are around, some of that does get alleviated. And you get a chance to kind of reconnect with your partner. You're experiencing this together. Now, I know a lot of marriages do fall apart during this stage, so I'm not diminishing that as a possibility. And I certainly have a lot of sympathy for that happens. Having gone through a divorce in my adult life, it's a painful, horrible process. But once again, viewing this through abundance, I found it to be, I had a partner to engage and share in some of the sad things that were going on, but also to experience a lot of these new things. So we were doing cooking classes. We both took up golf, just started having a lot of fun trying new stuff together. So the myth that your marriage is toast can be just that, a myth, and really is a chance for you to reconnect and re-engage as partners. The second one is that you have to move. As we talked about with the real estate, you do not have to move. You can make the house that you have work, and tons of empty nesters do make their new forever home and remodel, redevelop, add to the kitchen, things you've been waiting to do. Use that beautiful middle bucket that you've been building up to do something great like that. So moving is not an imperative, and everybody kind of plans around. As I'm planning for my retirement, for instance, I know my housing budget will be lower, not necessarily. If you want to stay, taxes and insurance keep going up, all those kind of things. So the housing budget's always going to be there. You always have to live somewhere, even if it's renting, whatever the case may be. So you don't have to move. You can, but don't feel like you've got to make that decision right away or that you have to do it. It is not an imperative by any means. The third is that you're never going to see or hear from your kids anymore. They still need you. They are still your kid. They are still going to have challenges. In that first year of school, they're going to get sick from the dorms. They're going to want to come home and see mom and dad. They're going to need help with their laundry. They're going to need a little love from time to time. They're going to need a little money from time to time. You will hopefully see and hear from your kids. We certainly did frequently, especially after that initial burst of activity and challenge is behind them and they get into a rhythm. So don't believe that they're gone forever, that this is it. You'll never see or hear from them again. That's not, in my experience, what has actually happened. The fourth is that your kids are now financially independent. All right, they're off. Let's say they're out of college. You're an empty nester. They're out of college. You've got a, they're out working. You're figuring they'll go on their own insurance. They'll go on their cell phone plan. They'll start paying for their own Netflix. Well, I can tell you that is a process. What's the word? Progress, not perfection. That is a process. It doesn't happen by any means overnight. Two of my kids are still on my cell phone plan, and they're holding on to these little pieces of tin that you call a phone because they're too cheap. Because once they know they're off that phone, they got to get on their own plan. So that's the way that we've managed that process. We'll let you stay until you need a new phone, then you've got to age out. But it's funny because I'll see the occasional sign on into my Netflix account or whatever, and I'm like, hey man, we talked about this. You're on your own for that 21 bucks a month or whatever it is for Netflix. But the thought that they're financially independent takes a while. And I don't encourage anyone to coddle the kid. They need to develop all these skills that we had to develop over time, which is understanding a budget and developing a savings plan, getting ready, dealing with debt, not getting over their skis in debt. A lot of them are coming out with student loans. I get that. We have to definitely help them longer than we used to. And I think it's just the cost of education, all of that has made it difficult for kids to launch. Many of them want to live in big cities. It's very expensive. My kid moved back from Denver back to Des Moines so that they could buy a house because it was literally impossible on the income that they had out in that big community of Denver, Colorado. So anyway, they're not going to be financially independent for a while. So if you're building your financial plan thinking that's all going to be gone, and don't even get me started on the weddings, guys, because that's where you're going to really need to have some middle bucket savings set up if you've got kids that will, and so they will get married and want your help with their weddings. So good times. The fifth one and the final is that nobody needs me anymore. I think it's actually to the contrary. People need you more now than they ever have. Your kids need you now as a mentor and a leader and a partner in their life more than they do as a parent. So while they may not need you as a parent, they do still need you in their life in many different ways. I let my son kind of go adrift while he was in college. I didn't pay close enough attention, check in on him, what was going on with his grades, where he was living. And, he got kind of lost. And so he still needed me. And I had convinced myself that he didn't. And I'd caution you against doing that. I really believe that these kids still need us in so many different ways. And so staying connected, checking in, visiting, all those kind of things I think are super important. The flip side is also then that your parents are going to begin needing if they don't already. As they age, they start to need help with so many different things, and their ability to make good decisions starts to diminish, and the roles begin to reverse. They don't like it, you won't like it. We're going through a lot of those challenges in our life right now. We have memory care. We have parents that still want to live on they're living alone, that it's not the best living situation that we've had to modify. All the things that you hear about and go through, but you are still needed in so many different ways, and not to mention to your partner and your direct family that needs you every day being part of their journey. So hopefully those myths help and understand, because once again, coming into the empty nest, I believed a lot of different things than that. So, all right, 3 key takeaways. Get my numbers up here right. 3 things that I want you to be thinking about. Abundance versus scarcity. It's not just 2 words, it's a mindset. We believe the empty nest can be an abundant journey if you embrace it and make the most of it. However, if you're viewing life as now being over, that it's only bad things ahead, that's exactly how it will go. And so it is a belief and a mindset. I'm not one of these that believes just because you say it, you can breathe it into existence. But I do believe that the universe can be a good place and can be an abundant place. And if we embrace the opportunities that it gives us, we can do that. Also, for giving back and sharing our abundance with others, it only makes that pot grow. So big encouragement there. Focus on being an empty nester that believes in abundance. The second then is a lot of new financial opportunities are going to open up for you. You're beginning to enter your highest earning years. So if you've been in a career for a long time, the opportunities for that income to only grow and you to save more and do more with that money is only going to get better, hopefully, in these next number of years. The ability to save, the ability to invest in new things, the ability to start a business. This is the big thing for us, is I was able to, once the college was taken care of and I knew the financial responsibilities that I'd committed to there had been taken care of, I felt free enough to go take the risk of starting a company. And so maybe that's something that you've dreamt about, and you have an idea and you have a business plan, and now you just need some room to breathe and give that some room to breathe. Maybe this is it. Maybe the empty nest is a chance for that. So there are a lot of new financial opportunities, ways that you can look at things differently because you're not fully supporting the kids. You have room, once again, in your financial life with a little bit of you back in it. And then I believe it's incredibly important to be proactive and not just let this stage of life come to you. We need to be proactive in finding these opportunities and thinking about our plan. I really appreciated the couple that came in to see us today because they were feeling bad about where they were at. They didn't feel like they'd done enough. And I see this all the time. Everybody thinks they've not done enough. Even the people that have done a ton don't think they've done enough. And again, that's a scarcity mindset. An abundance mindset says, I'm going to take it by the horns. I may not like what I see initially, but I know I can get to work. I'm making change. So being proactive and developing a plan when you're an empty nester is vital. If you wait until you're in your 60s, now you want to retire in a couple of years, it may be too late. You may have to push that dream way back. Get started now while you still got some runway to make it work. So those are my three things: abundance, new opportunities, being proactive. All right. As we're beginning to wrap things up here, I want to thank you all so much for sharing your time with us tonight. I love the empty nest. I love being an empty nester. I truly do. And hopefully you can tell from my enthusiasm that it's been a great stage of life. I know it's not for everybody. I see a lot of the empty nest groups on Facebook and other areas of people that really, really struggle. And I empathize with that. I did experience a lot of that sadness and desolation that came on early. But just view it from somebody who's been through it for a little while and also helped a lot of families through it, that there is a lot of hope out there and a lot of chance for a lot of fulfillment in this stage of life to find out who you are and what you really want to accomplish in this life. We can help you at PrairieFire put together an empty nest abundance plan. And so I'll give you our website address here in a moment. And all you need to do is go onto our website and sign up for a 15-minute consultation. And I'll walk you through the process of that. But we feel like we're uniquely qualified to help empty nesters get ready for the next stage of life. We've been through it. We've helped hundreds of families through it. And I believe in it. I believe in being proactive in this stage of life. I have a lot of passion for it. And we think, once again, we're uniquely qualified to really help families get through this time in life. So the deliverables that you get, first and foremost, this is a gift from us to you. We don't charge for our empty nest abundance plans. We put this together for you. And then if we decide there's a way for us to work together later, we'll address that at the time. But this is our gift to the empty nest community. The three things that you'll get from the PrairieFire abundance plan is a readiness check to see where you're at. We'll give you very clear barometers of where you're at versus where we think you should be. So if you think you're behind on something, we can either clarify that with you or we can diminish that myth and let you know that you're actually in great shape. But you'll have a good feeling, a good understanding of where you're at and where you want to go from here and just where things stand as they presently are. The second then is kind of recalibrating the GPS to say, all right, I wanted to retire at 62. Now I actually want to retire at 58 and start my own company. How do we do that? I want to make sure that I don't have to take my Social Security until 70 so I can maximize that benefit. I've got longevity in my family. How do I do that? Re-engineering, recalibrating all these goals is super important. And this is a great chance to do it. We will help you with that. We'll take you through a goal checklist and give you some real good deliverables on what those goals look like and some of the next steps. And that then goes to that final deliverable. We'll give you at least 3 concrete next steps that we think you should be taking. Maximize your Roth 401k, add more to your middle bucket, diminish this debt, sell your boat, whatever it may be. We'll give you 3 concrete steps that you can take with you that you can then feel good about knowing exactly what needs to happen next. All right, so that's the PrairieFire Abundance Plan. My website address here is at the bottom, pfwplanning.com. If you go there into our empty nest section, you'll see an area where you can download the success checklist. It's also in the chat. You can get that for free. Also, there's a book tab under there, and you can get a free copy of my book, Empty Nest Full Pockets. I dive a lot deeper into all of these issues. I talk a lot about our personal experience. I share a lot of screw ups that I made during these years, things that I learned by doing them wrong. I did not understand the college buying process, how to pay for college, understand what it was going to cost, but how to reduce that cost, how to manage it better, how to work with the universities. I didn't know any of that. And what I found out is that everybody at these colleges is paying a different sticker price. And if you don't work with them, you'll get left behind. It's a black box. It's wrong, but it is what it is. And so understanding it is vital. I talk about that a lot in the book. You can get a free copy there. You can download it as a PDF, or if you send me a note, I'm happy to send you a free copy through the snail mail if you would prefer that. So, all right. I want to thank you so much all for being here tonight. It means a lot to us that you joined us, and I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned a little bit about the empty nest journey, and what might be next for you. I welcome any comments, questions. You can email me at matt@pfwplanning.com. So we're easy to reach. We're easy to find. Here to help at any time. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We'll hope to hear from you and see you here in the future. Thanks.